Hi, my name is Aaron. This is my show, Reeducation, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the disabled and whether or not they have a place in the revolution. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to say is that this is a common argument that I hear over and over and over again. I get it all the time in my comment section, so it's something that I want to address right now. And that's basically this idea that people that are disabled are not useful in any sort of revolutionary aspect. They wouldn't be able to help do any sort of revolutionary activity, and even if they could, after the revolution, they wouldn't be able to serve any real purpose because they're disabled, so they wouldn't be able to be workers. Now, there are so many different problems with this idea that I could go on and on for probably an entire day about how wrong it is, but I am going to just address a couple of the main problems here, and probably in a future video I'm going to really break down some more aspects of it as well. But for the sake of this video, first we're going to talk about the idea of work. A lot of people, when they bring up this whole theory that people that are disabled are unable to actually provide any real work, probably haven't really met any disabled people, or if they have, they just have an incredibly low opinion of them, because from what I've seen, disabled people, and that's a very broad category, disabled people, you can be disabled or enabled in many different ways, but disabled people don't have a problem with working. Sometimes, if there's a physical disability, there may be a problem with the amount of product that they're able to produce, or the amount of time it takes them to produce a product. But as far as able to produce or able to work, yeah, lots of disabled people are able to work. If you're physically disabled, sometimes you may have to change the way that you work a little bit. You may have to modify your job a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that you're able to produce anything. And if you're mentally disabled, that definitely doesn't mean that you're unable to work. I know tons and tons of people who have varying different types of mental disabilities that are living perfectly normal for them lives that involves a lot of different things that they're able to do. They're able to do a lot of things that you or I or anybody else could do because they are just a normal person. The thing about disabilities, mental and physical, is that where some people are disabled in some categories, they may have advancements in others. And even if they don't, that doesn't mean that they're in any way inferior. It just means that under this capitalistic production-based society, that they're just unable to produce quite as much output, which means to a capitalist business owner and that sort of thing, they are worth less than somebody that can produce more of an output, because that would make them more money. But as far as humanity goes, as far as being able to be productive members of society in various different ways, if you don't look at it from a purely capitalistic mode, everybody has their place. Everybody is able to contribute in their own way. And that, leads on to the from each according to their ability to each according to their need aspect. Now, I covered very, very briefly the whole idea about somebody being disabled not being able to produce as much for a capitalist economy, right? But as far as in the future, as far as in the revolution, after the revolution goes, say if everything ends up becoming anarchistic, that doesn't mean that any of these people don't have a place within that revolution, and in fact means that they have a very important place in that revolution, because we're not going to be looking at things through the lens of being able to produce the most amount of goods for the least amount of profit, or for the least amount of money for that matter, but we're going to be looking at things through the lens of how can we best advance humanity? How can we make things better for everyone? And in doing that, you'll notice that a lot of people that are disabled in many different ways have wonderful methods of getting around their disabilities that actually work towards teaching us how to do some jobs a little bit better. People that are disabled in some way and aren't able to produce goods or services or what have you in the same way that many other people can, will inevitably come up with new and exciting and different ways of doing that job that could very well increase productivity or increase leisure time or increase the ability for us to be able to produce those goods without sacrificing a lot of other aspects, like the amount of time that it takes to produce those items or the quality of those items and so forth and so on. Like I've said many times before, the people that are actually doing the job know how to do that job best. And usually when they're confronted with a problem within that job, those are the ones that you talk to find a way to solve those problems, because since they deal with it day in and day out, they probably have a better understanding about it than you do. And when we're talking about an anarchistic mode of living, when we're talking about a society that's based around the ideals of from each according to their ability to each according to their need, it says right in that little slogan exactly how we should treat people within this new society, within this revolutionary society. And that is that each person is able to produce what they are able, not how much they work or how much, how fast they are able to produce or how many goods they're able to produce in an hour or how many, none of that. It's how much you are able to produce and how much you need from society, right? So from each according to their ability to each according to their need. So some people's ability in some aspects might not be as great as the abilities of others in other aspects, and maybe their needs are higher or lower or whatever. In any case, all human beings are different, and all human beings are going to be able to produce and consume at different levels. So if somebody in a revolutionary world isn't able to produce as many goods, then maybe we would have them do a job that doesn't insist that they produce as many goods. And in fact, they could find whatever job they thought was beneficial to them and perform that job. I was just talking to an engineer yesterday who is, I believe, physically disabled. I think that they're bound to a wheelchair, though I'm not going to speak 100% on that. And they were telling me about amazing innovations that they were able to make just within their one little shop. They were talking about different kinds of machines and apparatuses that they are able to use so they could possibly grow potatoes or build certain vehicles or whatever it is. They have different ways of doing things, and it's very interesting and it's very intelligent. They can do better work than I can in a lot of different areas. And that doesn't have anything to do with the amount of parts that somebody has or the usefulness of all of these things. It has to do with the fact that people are adaptable and they'll learn to use their bodies and themselves in different ways over time. And that's important. In any kind of revolutionary society, we should be looking at human beings in their whole nature, holistically, and seeing what they are good at and how they can contribute to society and how they can benefit themselves from that society. That's the goal, right? That's what we want to achieve. Yes, disabled people have very much a job to do in the revolution. They are not some kind of useless entities that need to be thrown away. That doesn't make any sense at all. But in the fight for the revolution, that's where a lot of people say disabled people have no place. They can't fight for the revolution because they would just end up being targets. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ludicrous, because many, many, many disabled people in many different ways are able to contribute in amazing ways to any kind of revolutionary activity. I've seen people that are bound in wheelchairs being able to stop robberies. I've seen people that are bound in wheelchairs in protests doing serious direct action. I've seen people with mental and physical disabilities of all kinds being able to go out and do amazing work. Just because you're limited in one small way doesn't mean that you're limited in every single way. And that's one of the main problems that I have with people when they say disabled as a broad general term. The word disabled could mean anything. anything at all. But as far as helping along with the revolution, what are you asking? The revolution is something that we have to do every single day, not through fighting people and through violence. Maybe that might have to happen someday, but right now, the revolution is being built through community building. It's being built through people getting out there, getting active, and getting involved in their communities and doing things like setting up community gardens, community refrigerators, worker cooperatives, housing cooperatives, all of those sorts of things. Pushing the ideas of socialism, spreading class consciousness. A lot of that, in fact, all of that can be done by a myriad of different people, by a myriad of different ways. Somebody that's bound to a wheelchair might not be able to do a community garden, though that's debatable. But they can obviously promote a community garden. They can be on the computer or on social media or whatever it is, being able to spread the news about this idea or about this group or about this revolutionary activity. There's no reason why a lot of these people can't talk to one another or can't organize. Of course they can do all of those things. And you leave the shoveling or the whatever, throwing a pickaxe, to people that are more attuned to doing that sort of work too. And if you're in a wheelchair, there's no reason why you can't, as long as you think that there is a way for you to be able to do it, right? And preferably in a safe way, not trying to hurt yourself or anything like that. And as far as mental disabilities go, it's so frustrating when people put mental disabilities into this broad category, because you're not talking about one single thing. You're talking about a broad range, a spectrum of different types of behaviors and aspects that could barely be quantified even 10 years ago, and still we're not able to quantify a lot of it today. The idea that somebody has some sort of mental disability is broadly whitewashed over whenever people are talking about things like, say, owning guns or violence or that sort of thing. When somebody thinks about a mental disability, they immediately think, oh, this person is violent, this person is unhinged, they shouldn't be allowed to own a gun, they shouldn't be allowed to participate in general society, and they're probably unable to do anything useful. That's not true at all. Just because you have a mental disability doesn't mean that you have any kind of problem with aggression. It doesn't mean that you have any sort of problem with working within society. It can, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And it doesn't mean that any of those people are bad people or they're dumb or stupid in any way. They're just different people who operate in a different way. I feel like in our general society, mental disabilities are one of the most difficult things for people to actually understand and wrap their minds around, because it's not something that they can just see that's physical, right? You can see somebody that's blind and be like, okay, I can kind of think about how it would be to be blind. You can see somebody that's missing a leg and you can kind of think about how it would be like to be missing a leg. But if somebody has social anxiety or an inability to properly contain their emotions or any other number of things that would be attributed to mental disabilities, it's harder to empathize with that because it's harder to understand what that would be like. So a lot of people have a hard time seeing it, so they usually just pass over anybody with a mental disability as just being, I don't know, too far gone, unchangeable, unable to be reached. But basically, I think the whole point of this video is just to reach out and tell people that even though you might be a little different, or even though you might not be able to do things exactly in the way that everybody else does them, doesn't mean that you are in any way less than anybody else, and it doesn't mean that you are any less than important in this whole journey, in this revolution, in this idea of building a new society. In fact, you're the type of person that we want to build this society around. People that are different, or do things differently, or think in a different way, or act in a different way, are all the individuals that we need to be focusing on and finding ways that we can actually make society benefit them. Because we want to be able to create an equitable actually egalitarian society that benefits everyone and not just a few. We want to create a world that if we ourselves happen to get sick or injured or in some way disabled, that we would be taken care of as well. We want to live in a society where you aren't taxed just because you happen to have some sort of disability that forces you to have to buy extra goods all of the time, like wheelchairs and medications and gadgets and doodads, just so you can live a normal life. We don't want to live in a society that takes advantage of people that have no other choice but to live in the way that they do. We want better than that. We want to live in a society that actually makes people feel like people and not like objects. At least that's the way I look at it. If you do get a chance, please check out all of the links in the description box below. Hit the little bell button because you know that they are not going to tell you when I release a new video. This is true. I have a butt ton of subscribers and I get less views than basically any one of the other people within the community that have right around the same kind of subscriber levels as I do. And here's my conspiratorial brain going off a little bit. I am actively damaging to a lot of these capitalist businesses, so I won't get sponsors, and I will be pressured by YouTube to either stop what I'm doing or be demonetized, or forced to do more palatable to their sponsors content. And that's just not going to happen. I'll take the hits. I don't care. As long as I'm out here telling the truth, I don't care. But honestly, it is a little bit annoying that I'm constantly having people telling me that they're never getting notifications about my videos, that they haven't seen any of my videos pop up in their feed even after hitting the little bell button and subscribing and that sort of thing for months. And they constantly have to come to my channel to see if I've uploaded anything new. So if that's you, thank you very much for sticking with me. And honestly, the way that this channel keeps going is through generous support, through Patreon donations, through people like you guys, and that sort of thing. So if you do get a chance, definitely check me out on Patreon. Every dollar helps fund this show. Buy some of my merch because that honestly helped keep the lights on. And thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.